CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. Once again, we've got a great guest today, and he is the Director of Global Operations at MTD CNC. A lot of you probably know who that is. He is also the host of the Gun Show podcast. He's gone from the shop floor to world traveler, and he is a major voice of manufacturing, highlighting the people, the process, and the machines that make it all happen. Let's get into the journey story and see what comes up along the way. Tony Gunn, welcome to CMMS Radio.
What's up, brother? Good to be here, Greg. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to meet new friends, make new friends, enjoy the journey, as you say, and participate in that. So thank you, 100%. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure for me, too, because I know, automatically, I know we can just have a kind of a winged episode where we don't have necessarily an outcome in mind because the conversation itself is the outcome. So that's going to be fine. And so obviously I want to get into your journey and kind of where it started and bringing us up to today. But just for everyone to be clear. So for me, like anyone who already knows who Tony is, I see you on LinkedIn. You put out a literal ton of content and you do all these great things around the world. You sometimes you're out here on the West Coast in California. You'll be over in the upper Northeast, and you're down there in South Florida, and then I'll see you in Japan and here and there. So how does this whole thing get started for you? Like maybe go back to when you were on the shop floor, and then bring us up to today and how that all unfolded.
Not as far back as diapers, right? You don't want me to go that far back, do you?
No, not that
far. This is a fun journey, Greg. It really is. It's accidental, serendipitous, I would say, at the same time. But it's a lot of people know kind of what they want at a young age. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor. I want to be, a professional athlete, which is in my head what I really wanted to do, right? Like I wanted to be a professional soccer player. Didn't all the way pan out, but manufacturing has brought me a beautiful life. And you summed it up best, Greg. You really did. You said, traveling around the world, being of service to an industry, highlighting people's voices in shops and making an invisible industry visible is the very best we can from everything around us, being made by manufacturing. It's really tough to look around. For people listening right now, it's really tough to look around the room and go, okay, other than the air and the people I'm sitting with, what wasn't touched by manufacturing, right? So I do currently have a massive passion for manufacturing globally because of what it does to support economies, households, governments, people, all of it. And I bounce from big to small just there and what it supports. But certainly U.S. manufacturing. This is my home. This is where I was born. I come from Scottish and Norwegian descent, but this is home for me. My wife is Mexican Italian descent, so we have a very eclectic, unique household. Our wedding even included bagpipes and kilts and Italian wines and cigars and Mexican frog legs, actually. So let me get to your point of how it all started, Greg. Accidental, my friend. So. I like to be very transparent, and I want you to interrupt me in any part you have more questions. I mean, no raising your hand, just interrupt me and go, oh my gosh, I want to know more or less about that subject.
I promise I'm not shy.
Awesome. And I don't want to talk too much either. This is a back and forth. I want to learn about you as well. But I'm always transparent and authentic because I think creating that authenticity with the audience allows the truth to resonate with them, right? We're all going through a journey, a roller coaster, and sometimes are good and sometimes are bad. And the difficult times that we call bad just teach us to be, patient, understanding, and hopefully we grow from it. So ultimately, it's not a good and bad thing, but a good and I learned something new today, right? So I was very young when I had my first child. I'm 45 now. She is currently 24. So you can do the math on how old I was when she was born. I, at that time, thought I was going to be a professional soccer player. I was on the training grounds with the pros. I was at that level. I was, on the all the East team for the JUCO college I was playing for. I was on the practice squad of these professional teams. And then I had this slip, right? And the slip is ultimately a gift, but I would call it a slip because that was not in my my timeline of this is what I'm going to do at 21, right? So we can call it that. But that's what happened. And so I needed to find health insurance that did not have pre-existing conditions. I needed to go into a place that had great health insurance, was going to take care of me and my coming family without any pre-existing conditions. It just so happened to be a machine shop. The mother of the lady that that's the mother of my older daughter. She was working at a machine shop, and it happened to be precious metals as well. So I went in and I started from knowing nothing. Again, I thought I was going to be a professional soccer player. I got kicked out of 3 colleges, Greg. I didn't have a piece of paper saying I was great at anything. I was a lifeguard for about 7 years before jumping into this career path. So what was my real expertise? You know, the 2 weeks at McDonald's that I worked when I was trying to go to prom, or the 6 months as a manager at Pizza Hut while I was in college, or my lifeguarding skills, right? So I went in, I was mopping floors on the weekends. I was working as many overtime hours as I could. I think, I can't even remember. It was like $5, $6, $6.25, $7, somewhere around there. And my main job at this place was a hydraulic press machine. I've told this story a bunch of times. You know, two buttons on either side for safety. Then a plexiglass piece comes down, punches a hole into a piece of precious metal. So gold, platinum, silver, all sorts of combinations, because it was a refining plant as well. And that's really how it started. I'm going to take a breath to allow you to ask more questions to go on with this journey, because you're correct. Currently, 25 years later, I'm bouncing around the world doing everything I can, but it does come from a journey. And I would like to talk about the manufacturing side of things, and the resilience that it sometimes takes, because most people see only the highlights, right? They only see a highlight reel on social media. They only see the successful part of it. They don't see the struggle, or the needing to move from one house to another house because not being able to pay rent, or things like this. And it's all a part of this incredible journey that allows us to be exactly who we are today and have gratitude for who we are today. So I'm going to pause and allow you to dive into that a little bit, because I have been known to talk a lot.
It's not a problem. And I think so, you know, when we have these kind of conversations, for me, it's supposed to be as if we just bumped into each other somewhere, and not always easy to do in a virtual environment, but somehow it works if you get the right kind of things going on. I don't know what that really is, because I like it to happen. You've used this word, in a serendipitous way, without any, you know, without much in the way of preconceived notions or looking for a specific outcome. So when you tell this much of the story so far, I think there's a lot of lessons in it. And one of the things is you didn't get stuck. You could have, but you kept going. And that's actually a pretty strong reflection of people in the space that I play in, is people that are in maintenance management. I talk a lot about computerized maintenance management software, but I really focus on the maintenance management in the middle. And it's about real people, real stories. What's happening? What isn't happening? Where are you getting stuck? Where are you finding solutions to that and breaking through? So what you've seen out there, and your passion for manufacturing and how it kind of makes everything happen, it all kind of comes together. I was going to ask you a question today that I think it's pretty much a softball, but what happens if manufacturing stops for a little while? And how does manufacturing actually happen? It has to include maintenance. Otherwise, you're not making much, not for very long. And I really want to ultimately get to that part of your journey where you're seeing the people in the process come together, these great cultures within an organization, and then how technology plays a role. So I'm kind of taking what you said and advancing us a little bit to this traveling and what you really see on the shop floors in these different facilities, and how it really comes together. And how often do you see the maintenance process happening in front of you?
Sure. Yeah, we'll fast forward the current and zoom into the now. So among this journey of working in machine shops for about 12 years, I pretty much did all my own maintenance, just to kind of highlight the maintenance side of things. So there wasn't really time for preventive maintenance, which was a heartache. I mean, it hurt, man, because machine goes down, you're struggling. And this goes for my 3 main areas of machine shops were in precious metals, woodworking, and then your standard steels and things like that. I've run and programmed, I don't know, probably over 100 machines at this point, run shop floors, managed a ton of people, and obviously the preventive maintenance side is so much better. And we'll get into what I've seen as I've traveled around in a minute. But I'd always done the maintenance on my own, and it was almost a cause and effect. It breaks, you fix it. You breaks, you fix it. There was no time set aside to make it work. So, so I'm in precious metals. I'm running about, I don't know, 30 or 40 CNCs at this point. Slide over to your more standard steels, Inconels, brasses. Similar situation there. In fact, I would even consider myself such a beginner at this, even though I had done so much. I had 6 or 7 patents with this precious metal company, through the company itself in jewelry at the jewelry people who sold the jewelry. I worked iThink software, which is almost a mobile version or a digital version of what Six Sigma is in lean manufacturing. So the charts that we have, the bubbles that you would create, the theoretical truths that would come up, you could actually put it into a mathematical calculation and see if that was actual truth or not. So that was cool. I've ran company improvement committees. At one time I was considered, top 5% in the world of understanding how to machine platinum. When I was at the woodworking company, I somehow, with running a 4-acre facility, moved up to become the right-hand man of the owner and became an interior designer, moved from Richmond, Virginia to Washington, D.C., and managed an interior design facility, designing kitchens upwards of $130,000, $140,000 for some of the politicians and stuff out there. And that was when I decided, you know what, I'm going to make a move. I'm stressed out. I want to make some changes. My wife was 6 months pregnant at this time. My current wife is 6 months pregnant at this time, and we said, what do we like in life? What brings us stress and what do we love? Well, we love the beach. We love summer. We kind of looked at each other like, you want to move to Florida? Sure, let's give it a go. So we put all of our stuff in a U-Haul. I had no guaranteed job, no guaranteed place to live, none of that kind of stuff. Drove south, took on 3 interviews. After driving for 20 hours, sleeping for 6, took on 3 interviews, got hired by all 3 companies, and the one I took was a company called Air Turbine Technology, and that was the beginning of the travel, Greg. This was a consulting type role that took me to the top 40 manufacturing countries around the world, offering consulting services for micro machining at high RPM while understanding how business is done in each of these countries and building distributorships in each of these countries, realizing that each of the countries do business a little bit differently. I'm not going to do the same style of sales or the same conversations or the same business meetings in Mexico that I do in Japan, that I do in Korea, that I do in India, that I do in many of the places in Europe that I'll do. It's just understanding how the world works in manufacturing, and we are going to bring this all together with the world of manufacturing and what we've seen. I did that for about a decade, and I tell you what, I grew so quickly in the importance of manufacturing, walking into these facilities around the world and seeing some places that looked like a bomb went off and some places that were pristine and you could eat off the floor, and just the different avenues of things being made, small garages to massive facilities with thousands of machines. I'll tell you, I walked into a place in Vietnam that had 15,000 robo drills. Most people can guess what that place is, but 15,000 machines, 70,000 employees, their own daycare. And then I've walked into places that look like a hole in the wall and shouldn't even have machines running because it's hot and humid and it's a dirt ground floor. And I'm like, how did you even put a CNC machine in here? What in the world is going on? So we've kind of jumped around a little bit. We've kind of fast forwarded a little bit. I know you have more conversations that you'd like to guide me on as we do this authentic conversation back and forth, because I can truly explore so many different avenues of manufacturing conversations and life conversations, because in the middle of this, Greg, just for fun, let me throw this in there. I actually performed hip-hop music for a decade and opened a natural healing business to help people heal through herbal medicines instead of Western medicines, and gave 100% of that profit away for the first 2 years to charities, 14 different charities to help the earth, people, and animals. So much like yourself wanting to do things, we do have to pay for the roofs over our head. And this is probably a conversation we had before hitting the record button, but I know your style, I know your vibe. Always wanting to do the best we can to support and care about those around us. And of course we have to pay our bills, but whenever we can, helping people out there. So there is just so much, how do they say it, a mosh posh? I don't know, of information all into one little area right now, and just trying to sort out the areas that you'd like to hear the most about, my friend.
Well, that is what's important for a lot of people to understand and realize about industry as a whole. And when I say industry, I mean, it's very broad and it's somewhat general, but you find these different ways that they're all connected, they influence one another. And I love great journey stories. I like awesome conversations that aren't really, there's not a schedule on when you're going to arrive at some destination. It's part of the journey. And, I haven't been all around the world, so I love hearing these stories. I've, studied and been around, different cultures. Like here in North America, I might have gone to a few places, but the way it all just kind of has this variability, this is a little bit interesting. So I'm always thinking about CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, and how there's so many different solutions out there. And when anybody asks me, why do you think there are so many? There's like hundreds of them. One person recently told me there might be 1,000 different solutions, and I'm not surprised. I also don't think you're going to change that because everybody works differently. You just gave a great example where you sometimes see a facility that's pristine and you could potentially eat off the floor. And on the other hand, you've been in facilities that have dirt floors and you're like, wait a minute, you can't even balance that machine. What's going on
How
here?
are you making this work?
and they're putting out products, and that's actually a reflection of how sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to get it done. And then how do we want to, look at that and improve that environment by environment? So my whole point with saying all this is you've got all this variability in how people work, but it's all connected. And I'm curious, when you're in each of these environments, where do you see, for example, a culture in some region of the world that is more able to change when they bring in technology for those people to enhance the process? Uh-oh, I think I lost you.
No, I'm still here, buddy.
Oh, there you go. Okay, sorry. The screen is frozen. I'll edit that out maybe. Anyway, how have you seen those differences unfold regionally around the world or even within North America when people are more receptive to change? Because I think one of the problems when we bring technology into manufacturing environments, say, for example, for the maintenance team, so that we can have more availability of the machines to produce the products that they produce, regardless of what those are, where do you see more or less resistance to that change and how they connect the introduction of that technology in a way that makes a big impact for the business and the teams on the shop floor?
It's a good question. And I could be stereotypical in my answer and pick a few regions around the world, but I honestly think it's more about the humans. I think that there are humans that embrace change and there are humans that don't. There's some people who love a comfort zone, and that can be anywhere in the world. There's a famous quote of the comfort zone's a nice place to live, but nothing grows there. It's a place that just you can get things done, but there's so much more that can be. So you've mentioned a few items, and we work with a lot of machine monitoring companies and ERP companies. And so whether it's the hardware, the software, AI is moving so quickly right now, VR, all that stuff. If you're not focused on a specific part of that environment, let's say, or that technology, it's moving so quickly now that it can be sometimes frustrating to keep up, because it just feels so difficult, especially the AI stuff. Just so much going on. Every time I have a conversation with someone in AI, it's different from the day before. Or you have to really trust the people around you, Greg. And some people don't do that. Some people feel like they're being manipulated to be sold something in one way or another. And if there's 1,000 companies out there, as you said, trying to support one area, how do I know who to trust? We really have to spend time with those people, right? Our industry is very much, manufacturing industry is very much a handshake, in-person style industry. It has been, it likely will be. There might be some changes with the young folks that are learning how to program from YouTube and watching a ton of videos. But traditionally, we have been, let's go to a trade show, let's talk about it, let's shake hands, and let's move on with our lives, which also makes for kind of a slower moving transition into technology, I would say. And that's why people try to do the best they can to push it and create awareness. But if we're not doing it correctly, who are we reaching, right? And then once we do reach them, are we reach them correctly? And it really is this onion that just keeps getting peeled back, where I'm going to full circle back to the beginning of this question. What areas of the world do I think embrace it the most? I would say, as a general rule, and not to be offensive to anyone out there, because I do not like to do that, and I do have a loud, big voice that carries weight in this industry, and a lot of people listen to the things I say with machine tools, and I'm flawed just like everyone else, so occasionally I make mistakes, but I try to be as good as I can in the moment, right? But I would
Yeah.
say that the Koreas, the Japanese, even the Chinese, the Singaporeans, a lot of the Europeans will embrace technology quicker than other parts of the world. When I go over to Korea and I see the amount of automation and robotics, when I go to Japan and I just see the public transportation that's over there right now, and how they have maybe 30 million people in Tokyo, and you'd never feel like it was busy on the streets with traffic. You know, you go to a Mexico City, and I'd rather walk everywhere than hop it. I'm scared to drive there. You know what I mean? I've scooted around Vietnam and Bali and the Philippines, and I've scooted around Malaysia. Like, it's kind of a scary thing to do sometimes, but you'll go to a Korea or a Japan and you'll wonder, because, so anyway, my point is, there are places in the world that are easier to adapt, and a lot of times we adapt when we're forced to. And over the last few years, because of this thing called COVID or something like that people kept talking about, I don't know, kind of making jokes, obviously, but
Sure.
this created an awareness of how much we have relied on areas outside of the U.S. manufacturing, and we talk, hopefully it's happening, but we talk a lot more now about reshoring and nearshoring, the importance of investing in quality machines that don't need maintenance all the time versus making sure that you have to have maintenance, going back to your maintenance topic. But also, if we do have machines that require it, we're hiring a team, because preventive maintenance to this stuff makes sure that we get our lead times where they need to be. You know, we want our customers to be happy. And if we're bringing more back to the US, then we need to be prepared as well to make sure that we're taking care of our local communities as a part of that.
And again, here we are talking about how it's all connected, and anybody saying, well, you keep saying that. Well, it's because it is. I mean, that it is. Get over it. I mean, it's like it's actually a pretty good thing. I've found that with a lot of different things, you know, throughout my experiences in my part of the industry. And so a couple of things that you were talking about. So one, I talk to a lot of people that are maintenance and reliability experts. I mean, bona fide experts. They've been in the trenches. They know how to do incredible plant turnarounds. They do things globally. Some of them are regional. Maybe they're in North America. That could be the United States and Canada. It might be in Mexico. And a lot of the things you're talking about, they really hit home as far as how the industry is really set up, where the potentials are, where the resistance might be. You brought up a couple, so you mentioned like Japan and those regions of the world. So whenever I hear Japan or I think about manufacturing, I think about something like, you know, Toyota and Kaizen, and how they've set a prime example. Is it perfect? I don't think there's such a thing, but I mean, when it hits on all, no pun intended, 8 cylinders, actually they make 4 cylinders. The whole thing is, you know, they're putting that whole thing together. And then when we look at maintenance and reliability best practices, for example, you mentioned preventive maintenance, and there's all different types of maintenance, some of which is really designated as preventive, some of it's predictive, there's prescriptive. Now we've got all the advent of these, the rapid kind of movement of these technologies when it comes to AI, machine learning, and all that, where you tend to see the resistance, at least in my view. And I'm not saying it's the right view. I'm just trying to get people to think critically about this and have more conversations about it. You get the resistance in how it's invasive to how the maintenance team is moving, right? And then when a maintenance and reliability expert comes in, they're very likely going to look at what the business as a whole needs, but they're going to tie it. They're going to tie that whole thing together. If they're a really good maintenance and reliability consultant, they're actually going to make maintenance matter for the organization. And it's far more simple than anybody really thinks. The hardest part is kind of meeting people where they are. because you've probably heard of Eli Goldratt. There's a book called The Goal, and he said, show me how you measure me and I'll show you how I'll behave. And when you say, hey, here, use this technology, the gunslingers that I like to call them, and I'm talking about the cowboys and the cowgirls that just want to get stuff done. Like, okay, how easy is it going to be? 3 clicks, no problem, I'll do it. How easy is it going to be? Well, you got to do this, 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 and like, how am I going to get my job done? So there's those things that are happening with how it has to make sense for them, operators, maintenance people. Then, if we switch that into what they need in the C-suite, they want beautiful dashboards, KPIs that matter to them, and we got to tie that whole thing together. So I kind of spun out there and got us back into the technology, and I want to switch. There's something coming up that's really big. It only happens every 2 years, and I'm talking about the International Manufacturing Technology Show, and you're going to be there, and a lot of these things are going to be talked about, touted about. Some of it's going to be real good. You're going to be able to solve problems, help people out. Some of it's going to be surface level stuff that doesn't make an impact in any way, shape, or form. But I want to ask you, about that particular show and some of the stuff that you've got going on there, because you've assembled a big team that's going there to cover it.
Yeah, IMTS is a lot of fun. What an enjoyable topic to discuss as well. Before I jump into it, Greg, are you going?
It doesn't look like I'm going.
Come on, man.
It's a timing thing, and what I'm doing instead, as much as I want to be there, is I've got a few different people that I'm going to send to other people to kind of talk. And there's the different creator spaces, and I know some of those people in the way that I knew you without actually having met you in person. That I'm going to send a few people over there. Like, I've got a really good friend of mine. His name's Brian Bieski. He works over at Upkeep, and obviously that's technology. And I'm not trying to sell a product here, folks, but I'm going to send him to a few places just to meet some people, maybe do some sound bites and all that, because he's really real about what he's trying to do. He's not trying to sell anything. He's trying to solve problems. He's a bona fide expert in this whole space. I got a few other friends I want to get connected, because I was thinking, well, if I can't be there, how can I help people? And then I'm also going to try to see if, and I'm going to release this as soon as possible so that people know you're going to be there. They could reach out if they need to talk to you, coordinate anything. Again, not to sell anything, but this is a big moment. This show has a reputation. It is massive. I mean, I have never been to a conference in my life that's that big, and I want to just help people know about it, get there. But I might even want to have somebody connect with me while they're there and just go live. I've never done that. So I've been thinking about it, and I'm like, oh, all right, it's time to, set them on the table and let's go.
Yeah, well, you could do some live streaming. It'd be fun. There's a lot to see. You're right. It's certainly the largest machine tool exhibition we have in the U.S. I have been to some bigger ones outside of the U.S., but in the U.S., it's the champion. We even are grateful and honored enough to have them on our sleeves. We're partnered together, and we do have a ton going on. We have some great colleagues, Arthur Field, Megan Zimba, Eddie Saunders, Anna Fernanda. They're all going to be presenters joining me there. We have dozens of booths we'll be filming on. We're doing time slots from 10 to 12, 12:30 to 2:30, and 3:30, 3 to 5. And so each day we're splitting up. Every presenter has its own camera person. Sometimes we'll be together. There's some wonderful, wonderful highlighted booths. I would feel bad if I don't name everyone. I'm not sure if I have time to name everyone, so it makes me not want to name anyone. I apologize for that, but maybe I could just run through it, Greg, real quick. Just, we got, and I have my chart
Knock
here
it
as
out.
well. Yeah,
Let's do it.
We'll burn through it real quick. So we got Watchan, Heimer, Akuma, Fanek, Heimbuch, Abarmi, Amiratech, Matsura, JTech, Mitsui Siki, Autodesk, Spinner, Imugi, Datanomics, Jurgens, Liebherr, Ceratizit, Stareg, Machine Metrics, Air Turbine Tools, Kenometal, and the list goes on and on. I'll also be speaking at the Student Summit, 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, to tell kind of this story, but for an hour in front of all the kids. Everyone, of course, is invited, not just the students, but anyone who's interested in hearing the full journey of the last 25 years of how I got to this point right now. And then I'll also be on the main stage from 3 to 3:30 hosting Faces of the Industry. So working with the AMT team, we'll be doing that as well. But yeah, we'll be doing a live stream every morning from 9 to 9:45, Monday through Thursday. That will be a live stream of each hall. So like, for example, let me just scroll back here. East Building will be on Monday from 9 to 9:45. So when we do that live stream, there'll be 4 of us, 2 at a time. So let's just say, for example, Eddie and I are doing a live stream. Then we're going to baton pass it like we're in the Olympics right now, doing a 4x4, and we're going to hand the microphones over to Arthur and Fernanda, and then they're going to do the second half of that. But we're going to kind of scroll through that hall, and every hall is going to get their own 45-minute time slot as well. So people who can't make it, and let's just do quick math, Greg. And my math, I didn't get so far in high school, but in practicality, programming, I've been able to program machines line by line since I was 20 years old. So let's do basic math. Basic math is, let's say that at the height of IMTS, we reached about, 120, 130,000 people came to that show. Massive. 4 halls, great technology. So if we do the math and say, well, of all the people in manufacturing across the country, and 120, 130,000 have gone, that's still about 1% of the total people in manufacturing, meaning 99% of the people, as large as this show is, will never make it to this show. So what can we do in order to elevate our booths? What can we do in order to elevate manufacturing? And that's to do these lives. That's to do these filmings. That's to take a 6-day booth that's been, $100,000 to $10 million on that booth and make it expand longer than that 6 days. That's why we create these videos. That's why we talk about it. That's why we share with the industry. I have been to 5 IMTSs now, but I didn't reach my first one until I was 30-something. And when I was 20-something, it damn sure could have helped me, Greg, to know some of the technology that was at the show, but I was never going to be invited. In fact, when I was 20, 21, 25, 28, I didn't even know the show existed until I started working for the consulting company that had a booth there, and I started spending time on the booth, consulting with people, selling products, that kind of thing. So yes, it's huge. It's massive. It's important. But there's so much more that can be done. And I think the folks at AMT realize that. That's why they're bringing in these, thought leaders and influencers that have a wonderful voice in manufacturing. Your Drew Crows and your Megan Zimbas, your Chris Lukey's, those folks that are out there. They're doing a wonderful job of spreading the word, and that's what we need to do. Look, like it or don't like it. Don't like social media. Don't care about social media. Being honest, I don't either. As soon as I retire, I'm deleting my mess. But it does what it's supposed to do to support an industry that needs help from all of us. And I used to fight about this as well. I used to go, because I come from manufacturing, right? I used to go, look, if you've never been on a shop floor, why are you talking about manufacturing? I would get a little bit upset. But looking back on it and the person I am now, I'm like, no, everybody talk about it. I don't care if you've been on the shop floor or not. Speak, talk, share with your friends, and I'm happy and grateful that everyone of any facet is participating from any part of the world, participating in manufacturing and shining a light on it.
Absolutely. And this is the thing. So like even if I put something out, like sometimes I'll say, oh, here's a CMMS rant, or I did one recently where I said PSA or rant. And I don't know what the answer is to that. That's why I put both. And the whole point is, when you get people talking and you get people thinking, and it's not so much about being right. It's about a conversation that can start to live and contribute and foster critical thinking of any kind. If you want to learn, you can get 2 experts that are talking on an expert level, and it starts to become blah, 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 blah to somebody that doesn't know that stuff. And then somebody in other parts of the business, or even unrelated altogether, they might bring up a question. Even they might think it's a silly question, and they bring it up. And now that's an opportunity to reach more people. Because another thing I want to talk to you about, at least briefly, is the skilled trades gap and the impact. Like there's great concern about this. Now we're seeing some improvements. I'm hearing lately, and I'm reading lately, and people are telling me that we're seeing some slight improvement. Say, for example, with Gen Z starting to see this area as a potential opportunity for careers. But do you see the skilled trades gap coming up a lot in the places that you visit or when you're at a conference like this and talking to people. Is it really as challenging as we, and I'm saying everybody that's talking about it, seems to be? Skilled
Greg,
trades gap.
I don't know how much time we have left, but there is no way you can touch on this subject briefly. It is so involved, and there's so many different angles that can be taken when having this conversation. So I'm gonna do the very best I can to share what
Sure.
I've seen, but also from absorbing knowledge from the other people that I admire out there that have seen similar. Have I seen it? That easy answer is everywhere. Every freaking where, Greg. Every shop I walk into, they're asking me, hey, can you help me find people? We need help. How can we not fight? Fight's an aggressive word, but I'll use combat this skills gap. What do we do? And so, okay, let's talk about this and do the best we can so I don't get lost in the weeds of just going everywhere, because I can do that with this topic. So first of all, the topic gets discussed about how can we get more people and the awareness and get them into trades. But before we get into that, we got to get into the middle schools and high schools. But before we get into that, we got to get into the parents of the kids in these middle schools and high schools that understand that these trades are good and you don't have to go to a university to have a great career. In fact, an ROI on the trades right now is better than the ROI on a university, mathematically proven. But before we get into that, how do we afford to hire people to create this excitement and awareness in these schools, middle schools, and parents when the government doesn't support us in that fashion? They will send money to some of the 1% of those big companies, and they know who they are. I don't need to drop any names, but the small and medium-sized shops are struggling in many facets. Whether it's government, and some people would then argue, well, we don't want government support. We want to do this on our own. Okay, fine, but we have to figure out how to create funds to get people into the schools, to excite the parents and the kids about trades, to then get them wanting to be excited, even though a flex schedule is now the thing, and this doesn't have a flex schedule. If you're a machine shop person, you're in a machine shop, so there's another kink into the system. So then we start talking about automation. Okay, well now we're throwing robots and cobots and pallet changers and bar feeds and AI and machine monitoring and all of this into a system to make sure that it's working with less people. Okay, if I have a robot cell or a cobot cell now, I can have a person, man, woman, whoever it might be, running 10 machines instead of one machine because they're doing setup and removal. And you can even set it up to do the measurements at the end and put it right into a box depending on how you create that setup. You can do tool changes through automation. I've seen perfect cells over in Japan where there are no humans, and the entire thing from pulling it out of a box, putting it into a machine, running the part, measuring it, and putting it into a box to go is all being done by automation, all being watched by some sort of monitoring system. All tool changes can be done through automation. So an entire thing humanless, which some people immediately then go, they're taking our jobs. Well, guess what? We want you to work with us. We want you to be in the world of manufacturing. We couldn't find you. So I'm going to take a breath, Greg, because this is the buzzword I would say that I most bump into. I just did work with Greg Lindbergh and the Lindbergh Foundation. We just did an awesome video with with STEM and STEAM over there with the Yes Kids who were in aerospace world, building planes and having tests, and the Science Museum of St. Louis as well. And we're doing this with the StarAg group and the people that are there. Greg Lindbergh, by the way, an amazing human being, grandson of the famous Lindbergh family. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
And so what an amazing human being. But I really could talk about this for another 3 hours if we were to peel it all back, Greg. And I know that's too much for the time we have. I think I just spent about 4 or 5 minutes ranting, as some people might say, about the skills gap. So I'm going to take a breath again and just allow you to get involved in this. Yeah.
Of course. And it's a big, big subject. It's a big topic. It's something that we have to keep talking about. So we'll do that again later, and we'll try to unpack it in little bits and pieces, because a lot of times that's what people need. The bits and pieces that they can kind of digest, so to speak. And I think what's really cool about this opinion or viewpoint, these things that you're sharing, is it really reminds me of all these other organizations that are trying to make that push. I think the skilled trades gap, when people ask me about it, you talked about it, getting down to that, the schools, the middle schools and the high schools. And the era that I'm from, I'm not that old, but I'm, in my 50s, and we had shop classes in middle school. We had them in high school. We had lots of people coming through presenting about the careers and the things that they do. So we need to see more of that. But like you said, if people aren't in a position to volunteer that time because maybe, some successful entrepreneur now is successful enough to say, hey, I'm going to start putting my time into the community. Absent that, it starts to kind of fall apart. And then we also have to talk to the parents. I think one of the reasons I like talking about it here is one person might hear about it and go, I wonder how I could get involved. That's all we want. And when we talk about people worrying with the automation, the cobots, and this idea that it's going to take your job, maybe, but it's also creating one, which is going to be kind of cool when we look at subsequent generations that are almost right away technologically advanced. They have an appendage that we don't have, right?
Yeah.
And they speak that language. So there's going to be opportunity that comes about as a result of that. But we got to keep talking about it. Not on this episode, but now we know we've got a subject we can kind of stay in touch on. And for me, I just want to give a shout out. There's a couple of different people and things happening out there. So I'm a big fan of Metallica. And Metallica has a foundation called All Within My Hands, and they have the Metallica Scholars program. And the reason I'm so passionate about that is not just because of their music and what that means for me or anybody else. It's because they're really trying to reach it at the community level, and they've created that program so that a lot of community colleges can deliver these programs that are around the skilled trades. And that, how can you not love that? It's just automatic. So I talk about All Within My Hands sometimes. There's a gentleman out there named Andrew Brown who is all about the skilled trades and trying to kind of pay it forward with getting out there, community outreach. He does speaking engagements, all these things. I've got an episode coming up with him where we talked about it as much as we could in the limited time. And then there's also Explore the Trades. They're out of St. Paul up in Minnesota, and they're trying to reach it at that level where kids can get exposed to skilled trades. So we can spin out on this, and by talking about those other people, what I get out of it is it might help the industry as a whole. That's all I really want to do. I've done some of it. I came up in those environments. I was in some wood shops and some manufacturing facilities as a young buck. I was the first job I had as a janitor was in a manufacturing facility that what they were working with was foam. And even though I was the janitor, they would let me go and get the raw materials. And they're these giant, like it almost seemed like they were 2 stories high, foam blocks, and I'm putting them on a roller and I'm walking them up, and I was so proud. Ooh, and they're gonna make stuff out of this. I mean, that is good stuff. I think it's good stuff. It's awesome. So we don't have to spin out on that too much. What specific things, anything about industry, are you really excited about right now?
It's a good question, because I would make the discussion that I'm excited about all of it, and I stay excited. I think that's part of why people watch so many of the interviews that I do, is just because I stay excited. I think it's fun to turn a piece of raw material into something of value, and I've had the great privilege, Greg, to work with the head engineers from your Nikes and Googles and Teslas and Facebooks. So you wouldn't even believe Facebook has a machine shop, but it does. It is a big one. And your NASA's and all these folks around the world I've had the honor and privilege to share time with, and it seems like all of it is exciting to me. And if I was to, pick one, I think it would almost be unjust to pick in the other, because I think there's obvious ones that we can get. I mean, who doesn't want to walk over to a Fanic booth and see a car getting picked up, right, by a giant robot? It's fun to see. But just as much value, if not more so, is the software side of things, is making everything run better, to take tribal knowledge and put it into a digital world so that we can perform better, to make everything within our shop more understandable. This is the power, and that includes the maintenance side of things, that includes the production side of things, that includes the management side of things, that includes understanding what our people's wants and desires are, so we can give them the best environment for them to work in and want to be a part of manufacturing. So I can't really pinpoint any of it, Greg. I think this industry is fascinating. I learn something new every single day. I get to spend time, precious time. The one thing we cannot manufacture more of is time. Uh, and I get to spend that precious time with brilliant people who teach me something new every single day, and just share. I mean, we're the salt of the earth type of people. This is an industry. It may have been accidental that I found myself here, but damn, was it fortuitous. You know, I'm so grateful to be here. And so I can't really answer that question for you, Greg. I'm sorry. I don't have
No,
that's my answer is everything.
that's good. See, and this, a lot of times I'll tell people when I'm going to ask them a question, hey, there's no right answers here. We want to just get people thinking, right? And we're not trying to. It's not for shock value or anything like that, and it's not a cop out because in your particular case, like this is not a virtue signal, people. If you look at what Tony produces, where he goes, what he does, I mean, the passion shines through. And who knows if it was, I mean, serendipitous, yes, that you're in the industry, but who knows? Maybe that's meant to. What are you gonna? Does it matter? You're doing it. You're making a difference. You're having a
I hope so.
blast. You're
That's
having a
for sure.
blast.
That's for sure.
And what more can you ask for? What more can you ask for? And you talk about salt of the earth, man. Something we say like throughout the maintenance world. Maintenance people are, as real as it gets. It doesn't mean there's not real people in all different types of industries and all that kind of stuff. But you're not going to bullshit them. They're not. They're going to call you out, and they have no problem if you drop an occasional F-bomb or two. And I guess it depends, right? But the whole idea is we're trying to get stuff done. You talked about the tribal knowledge, and how I'm always talking about how your CMMS or something similar to that is a historian. It gives you valuable information. And then now somebody might plug in some AI, which for me, I'm still like, be very careful with that. It's not a magic silver bullet. I get that from a buddy of mine, a good friend over at Reliability X named Joe Anderson. He said, everybody thinks technology is a magic shiny silver bullet. And it's not. It's a tool like anything else. And you've seen a lot of that. So I want to switch us into the fun question segment.
Okay.
And
interesting.
No wrong answers here. And it's because you're first time CMMS radio guest spot. I want to do the 3 fun questions. So fun question number 1.
All right, let's do this. Oh, by the way, before we get started, can we just say none of this was sent ahead of time? We're just having fun at this moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, no low prep, no prep, run and gun. And everybody's like, Greg, what are you doing? That's lazy. And I'm like, no, it's not. Trust me.
It's authentic. It's real. This is what happens.
That's what people want, because I started asking them right away when someone would stop me at like a trade show. I couldn't believe it. My heart almost stopped. Somebody came up to me and said, oh, hey, you're, and I was like, whoa. And then I said, what do you like about it? And he's like, you're not a talking head. It's not bullshit. It's just real. So let's do the fun questions. Then I'm gonna ask you about a couple of promo things. But first fun question.
All right, let's do it.
What is your favorite music?
Oh, good question. I would say my teenage years were growing up in the 90s. That was the era of hip hop and grunge. And I really enjoyed that era. I was a little bit more angsty and angry as a teenager as well. And as I've gotten older these days, if you went through my playlist, it would be everything from the 60s to now, but it would all be positive music. It would all be something when you hit play, you're like, oh, I'm feeling good right now. And it doesn't really go into a genre. It could be any genre. If I'm feeling the vibe of that song and I'm just, rolling down the road, just enjoying, bobbing my head, I'm like, yep, that's it. I'm adding it to my playlist. Let's add another one. So
cool.
So that's my music scene is give me anything and let's have fun.
All right. Good stuff. Fun question number 2. What is your favorite sport or hobby? And on sport, it doesn't necessarily have to be one that you play. It could be one you like to watch.
For me, it's both. It's everything. It's football in Europe and soccer here in the U.S. It is, for so many reasons, my favorite. But I would say currently it's because there's no commercial breaks. You go 45 minutes straight through, no timeouts, no commercial breaks. Just give me the game. We get a halftime. We get a second half as well. And I'm impressed by the athletes that play that. I'm impressed by athletes that play any sport top tier. Let me just say that. The Olympics that just went on. Holy moly, are these people incredible. And I don't have as much time as I used to have to watch all the basketballs and American footballs and tennis and, all the different sports that are out there. So currently, I do wake up on a Saturday morning and a Sunday morning, lay in bed and watch some Premier League soccer and cheer for Manchester United.
All right. All right. Good stuff. Now, fun question number 3. No wrong answers here. Okay, Tony, you just say it like it is for you.
You got it.
What is your philosophy, viewpoint, opinion, anything at all about the concept of work-life balance?
Ooh, really, really good question, because we all get torn out of that balance regularly. And it's important that we reinvite ourselves back into it without feeling guilty that we're enjoying our life. And a lot of us will give ourselves time, but be thinking about work the whole time we're trying to find that balance. I am of the perspective and the philosophy that if we are balanced, if we find time for ourselves, if we are at peace and harmony, our work becomes better. So I love the European style of having, 4 to 6 weeks of vacation, which we've never had here in the US. But now that I'm working with MTD, which is a UK based company, I've had the opportunity to take a little bit more time to myself, which I think invigorates me moving forward with excitement and joy for what I do. I am very, very much of the philosophy to find the joy in life and make sure that you can apply that joy to as many aspects of your life as possible. And hopefully that seeps into work as well as private life.
Very cool. And the reason I say there are no wrong answers is, number 1, there's not. Number 2, it's gonna get somebody thinking. And if you really think about it, question number 3 incorporates question number 1 and number 2.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's good stuff. Now, I want to give you an opportunity to provide any shout outs that you want, or most especially how best people can get in touch with you. Now, I know LinkedIn is a phenomenal way to get in touch with you. Anybody out there, just find Tony Gunn. It's Gunn. But explain to us how people can get in touch with you in any capacity for anything you want them to reach out to you on.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Greg. I appreciate that. It's fun to give a shout out. It's fun to tell our stories. It's fun to connect with people. I hope this resonates with some folks out there as well. You've done a wonderful job hosting this show, so thank you for that. MTD CNC is a news channel, media news channel. It's been around since 2007, and it is the letters MTD CNC. So Machine Tool Direct Computer Numerical Control.com, and it's that easy. We are the world's most popular news and media channel, unbiased, agnostic news and media channel. We travel the world bringing local news to your screens. We get creative and do interviews with customer testimonials, product reviews. We even created a shop rescue, which is a play off of Bar Rescue and Restaurant Impossible, flipping shops around, working with EBITDA growth systems on that. We just want to constantly get creative. I'm working now on a reality show for manufacturing. I'm working on a sitcom like The Simpsons or South Park with manufacturing. There's so many ways, but MTD CNC is the company that I'm with. The Gun Show is my podcast as well. And you can find that on Spotify, Apple, Google, YouTube, or the MTD CNC website. And like Greg said, LinkedIn, going back to the beginning where I was like, I don't even like social media. I don't really have any other social media. LinkedIn, I find value in. I love connecting with with business leaders and mature entrepreneurs that are looking to make those business connections. I've weeded myself out of a lot of other sites over the years, for better or worse. But that's where I do. That's my playground is the business world for LinkedIn. Tiny bit on Instagram on Tony Gunn Speaks, but it's really just because I should, because people are on Instagram. But most part, MTD CNC is on every channel. You can find us on TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, our website. I mean, we have the channels on all the places. If you're looking for a place to absorb every trade show that you can, every piece of technology you can from an unbiased, agnostic viewpoint, saying, this is the interview that we are doing with this person who has created success. This person would like to share that success with you, that you might be able to do it as well. That's how we go about our business.
It's good stuff, man. I consume it on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is not just a great place to play, but you create and form relationships. And I'm not a big social media guy. I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, I can't believe I did this. I don't know what I was thinking. And then I'm using my name and all this stuff. And she's like, oh, you didn't really want to do that? I'm like, I avoided social media like the plague, man. But cool people reached out, and they're real. And it's like, damn, that's what I want. So this is what I'm doing. And man, I appreciate you joining us to talk about all this cool stuff. And I think it's impactful. I think what you do is great. Your passion for it really does shine through. I try to chime in whenever I can. Every now and then it's just a virtue signal, just because I got to show some love real quick. But man, this has been a blast. I really appreciate the time and a great conversation. So Tony Gunn, thank you for being on CMMS Radio.
Absolutely a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for your time. Thanks for doing what you do, regardless of that social media side of things, and putting your name to it. You've done a wonderful job today. What a joy it's been to be here. Thank you so much, CMMS Radio.
Thank you, brother. Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.